first, welcome to Unity Spiritual Center in Panama City, and welcome to our online community. Today, we begin a 4-week process called a New Thought Advent. Some of you may be familiar with Advent from your religious upbringing of your family origin, and others of you may not know anything about it. And that's perfectly fine. We are going to look at the celebration of Advent, and we are going to look for a deeper understanding of why the 4 elements of Advent were selected and chosen by the creators of Advent. Those 4 elements are faith, peace, love, and joy. So for the next 4 weeks, we will be exploring one of those. Each week, you will hear something about the history of Advent. You'll hear about the Unity 12 power. That should not be new since we did a whole summer series, 12 weeks long on the 12 powers. Which one of those is closely related to the Advent theme of the week? How that theme shows up in your daily life? What that theme looks like through the lens of the infinite, intimate, and inner God? And how to build upon whatever the theme is for the week on a personal level and on a spiritual community level. So that's a lot to wrap in 20 short minutes. So let's get started. Advent is a season observing in many traditional Christian churches a time of expectant living and waiting and preparation for what is known as the celebration of the Nativity of Jesus. So similar to Lent, Advent is a preparatory season. And the significance of it is to look forward to something, to be waiting for something better than what is right now. That's the traditional Christian significance. So in this particular case, we are looking forward to the annual celebration of the birth of Jesus. The earliest evidence shows that what was called the Feast of the Nativity of our Lord was established in the later part of the 4th century. Y'all know how I love my history. So, found among the writings of Pope St. Gregory the Great, there was included a sermon about the 2nd Sunday of Advent. And by 650, Spain was celebrating all the Sundays of Advent. And at that time, there were 5. We currently have 4. So as a part of this new tradition, which was created on purpose as a preparation for the celebration surrounding the birth of Christ. We're coming up into the Christmas season. It's been Thanksgiving, and we've been out into the world, and there's Christmas all around us, and we have a month to go. It's a joyous time. Remember that. So you're probably also familiar with something such as this, which is called an Advent wreath. Now, the Advent wreath is a more recent tradition. The modern Advent wreath emerged out of Germany and spread through Europe and beyond in the 1930s. And so the Advent wreath has really only been a part of our tradition for just under 100 years, where the tradition was created back in the 4th century. So do you see how as we continue to evolve on our spiritual path, our traditions evolve as well. Good to know, because we could create a new tradition today, tomorrow, next week. All you creative thinkers, you just go for it. So last year, here at Unity Spiritual Center, we examined the birth story. And you know how I love my story, because it's not necessarily true, but it's a good story nonetheless. We examined the birth story of Jesus, and this year we will be reviewing the preparation process that is practicing among the Christians in preparation for that story. We know that the story is all about the awareness of the birth of the Christ, but that Christ is not a babe in the manger. The Christ is our Christ presence within. You will hear me say that multiple times. In New Thought, we recognize the birth of the Christ at a time when we awaken to the inner Christ in ourselves, when we claim for ourselves the inner divinity that we talk about in principle number 2. Jesus had that inner awareness of God when he had the inner relationship and the inner face of God that we've talked about recently. As in all metaphysical interpretation of the Bible, the stories of the Bible are our story. The story of the Bible itself is about humankind's relationship to God. It is about my relationship to God. It is about your relationship to God. And it is about the evolution of our relationship to God. Yes, they are wisdom stories from days gone by, but when you look at them closely, you can find the wisdom that applies to you. So in the metaphysical interpretation of the nativity story, the birth of the Christ represents our awakening to the true self, our Christ presence. It's just another reminder for each of us to wake up. Are you noticing? Are you noticing how many times the Bible, the stories, are reminders to wake up? Obviously, humanity has been working on it for a long time, and we need this constant repetition, so I would recommend put the word awake on your refrigerator, on your bathroom mirror, on your car visor. We need to awaken. And we need to stay awake. Are you with me? All right. So during Advent, we remember what it is that is important to live as the Christ here on this planet in this now moment. And those elements include faith, peace, love, and joy. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, says in The Revealing Word that faith is a deep inner knowing that all which is sought is already ours for the taking. Jesus experienced that deep inner knowing that Charles Fillmore speaks about. He had the sense of oneness. Charles Fillmore goes on to say that a close analysis shows that faith must be the foundation of all that man does. And man doesn't just mean man. Man means man and woman. Gals, we are not free. We too must claim the foundation of our life as faith. Charles says that the development of the faith faculty is a key to our spiritual realization. So what is important for us is that our wayshower, Jesus, expressed an incredible level of faith, did he not? He had faith in an infinite God. He had faith in an intimate God that he called Abba, and he had faith within himself that he was God manifest on the planet. To walk the earth with this level of consciousness requires an incredible amount of faith and wisdom and zeal and will and release of all the other ideas that contradict that teaching. So as we unfold spiritually, Jesus also demonstrated that he understood the finer shades of metaphysical reasoning, and he related his mind and body to both ideas in the thought realm and their manifestation on earth. Jesus demonstrated that he understood the healing power that he understood the healing power stored up in the body, which he said is released through faith. 3 times in the Bible it says, "Your faith has made you whole." Affirm that with me. Your faith has made you whole. So let's take a moment to examine our individual level of faith. I won't ask you to share out loud, but I do want you to go through this week exploring what you're putting your faith into. So some of us may have been consciously working on our 12 powers, one of them being faith. Actually, faith is the first of our innate 12 powers that we call to awaken. And it is because when we awaken our faith supports all the other 11 powers. Those attributes of God within us are our natural birthright. All we need to do is acknowledge them and learn to balance their expression. So in Advent, we light the candle for faith first, for the very same reason, because it is our faith that supports the other 3 elements in the preparation for the awakening of the Christ: faith, peace, love, and joy. So faith is our inner knowing that the Father and I are one. Affirm that with me. The Father and I are one. And that all supply is given according to our faith. Affirm that with me. All supply is given according to our faith. So, for me personally, I call upon my attribute of faith a lot. I run a spiritual center. I mean, come on. I pray consciously, calling into the presence of faith within the cerebrum of my brain, where it is located according to the 12 power study that we did earlier this year. I consciously affirm the activity of faith into greater expression in my life, in your life, and in this ministry. I do that all the time. And when I don't, you probably know, because I'm like a moody person. And then I have to reawaken my faith. But I'm always able to reawaken my faith because I have people around me to support me to reawaken my faith. just like all of you have one another and me to support you, your family, your friends, your spiritual family. We're all here to reawaken one another's faith when we lose it. So when that happens in this process, for me, I am then able to heal and move beyond an outdated idea that is circling in my brain. It's typically an idea of separation from something, whether it's separation from God's, my divinity, who I am, who I've come here to be. It's still an idea of separation that takes me away from my truth. And so I call on my faith to help me release that erroneous belief. Sometimes during our most traumatic life experiences, we fall to the thinking that we are separate from God, we are separate from one another, we are separate from our family and friends, that we have no support. But that is far from the truth. We never leave God. Oops, I said that backwards. God never leaves us. It is us who falls into false thinking. It is us who forgets the truth of who we are, as outlined in Unity Principle number 2. We forget that we have an infinite God, that we have an intimate relationship with the divine, that we are the divine made manifest in the image and likeness. We forget. And it is when we awaken to our faith that we can restore that faith. We may have felt alone, but it was never true. So those error thoughts are proven wrong to each of us through the activity of faith. For me to accept God as a universal life force everywhere present empowers me to stand in my faith. I share this because each of you have countless times in your experience struggled with your faith. I am no different from you. You are no different from me. We each must call upon the strength within and balance our faith in preparation to the awakening of the divine. Just another reminder, we'll get countless more in this life experience, just like we've already had countless up until today. And when I forget, I'm asking you to remind me. And when you forget, I will be happy to remind you. That's why we are in community together. So for now, accepting this new thought of spirituality and this new ownership of faith at the core of my being, I can create a new experience for myself, and you can create a new experience for yourself. For example, I use my faith to see everything working for the highest good, for myself, for you, for this ministry. I'll share some ideas I hold true to my heart a lot. I see congregants transformed by these unity and new thought teachings and their participation in this community. I see newcomers recognizing we are spiritual but not religious, and joining us to explore their own spiritual awakening at their right and perfect timeline. I see all participants allowing and surrendering into the transformation that must take place within each of our own souls. I see volunteers showing up in joy to meet the needs of the inner community and the outer community. I see building contractors blessing us with reduced rates to do some of the repairs we have on this beautiful building and wonderful campus. I see abundant contributions flowing into the general account and the building fund. I see our metaphysical bookstore inspiring and empowering others on their spiritual journey. I see good coming to us in expected and unexpected ways. That's what I see. I see blessings and miracles everywhere I look because I stand in the power of my faith for me and for you and for this community. And I'm asking you to join me in standing in your own faith to empower your own life, your own experience. We each have something we know we're working on, and you must do so in faith. We have come together to co-create a harmonious world, and it starts right here. And we ripple out. And so this week, as you stand in your own faith, I invite you to ask yourself truthfully in the mirror, what have I put my faith into? Between you and your God. Namaste.